Hello and welcome back to Pictorial on Relay FM. I'm Quinn Rose, and I didn't go to art school, but I still love to learn about art and have opinions about it.
And I'm Betty. I also didn't go to art school, but I also love learning about art. I love reading about art and finding interesting stories about art, and I definitely love having opinions about it as well. So, Quinn, have you heard about the upside down painting?
I did see some headlines about this, but I haven't looked into it too deeply, so I'm pretty excited to hear whatever you're about to tell me.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna copy a link right now to a news article, and I'll drop it in the show notes. But
all right, so this article is titled "Mondrian Painting Has Been Hanging Upside Down for 75 Years."
Mm-hmm. And would you like to describe to the listeners what you are seeing? So I think you should see a picture where there's a little arrow you can drag from left to right. And if you drag it to the right, it's incorrect. If you drag it to the left, it's supposedly correct.
Yeah, so it is a very typical what you would expect Mondrian painting that is basically a white background with straight, thick lines of red and yellow and a few blue ones as well. They are running parallel to each other, making various rectangles and squares out of those blocks. If you aren't that familiar with Mondrian, I recommend you go listen to our episode we did about him a little while ago to hear more all about him. But then in this specific painting, there's more white space. Well, I'll say on the incorrect version, that is what people have been seeing for 75 years. There's more white space near the top, but then the bottom section of the painting has several stripes with very little white space, with black, yellow, blue, yellow, red, and then it sort of goes into the more white space stripes. But then apparently it's been upside down, so that more. So the more concentrated color should be on the top of the painting instead, there's a blue stripe that's on the right-hand side, but it actually should be on the left-hand side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is exactly what apparently happened. And you are right. We did do a Mondrian episode back in apparently February 2021. So that was almost 2 years ago, which
wow.
I didn't think it was that long ago, but yeah, we did. It was episode 32, and so I won't, get into the whole thing about who Mondrian is, but basically, he was a Dutch painter who was known for these very modern looking paintings that are very abstract. He was a part of the abstract expressionist movement. So he worked between the early 20th century until 1944, which was when he died. He worked in Paris during most of his life, but then after World War II broke out, he moved to London and then subsequently to New York. And this painting is actually called New York City 1. It was painted in 1941. And I think in the episode we did talk a little bit, or I think quite a lot, about Broadway Boogie Woogie, which was his last painting that was also inspired by New York. So he basically did a lot of paintings that were inspired by New York, the streets of New York, the grids, and you can kind of see that this painting has a grid as well. So I guess before I explain how it got hung upside down, what is your opinion? Like, do you think this painting looks either better or makes more sense one way or the other, despite what is supposedly correct or not correct?
Well, in my non-expert opinion, I will say that with the greater concentration of color at the top, it does feel less weighted down. Like when those stripes are on the bottom, it does feel like the painting's kind of bottom heavy, versus with them at the top, it's top heavy, but that does evoke a different, I think, feeling in the viewer, because instead of it being like pulled down, it's like pulled up, which I guess is a sort of brighter look at this painting. beyond that, like while the blue stripe is also different, I don't have a much of an emotional reaction with the blue stripe being on each side of the painting. Although I guess with the when it's on the left side, as is supposedly the correct version, that does almost line up more with like, because English reads left to right, so it feels almost like a justification of the page, where it's like left aligned and then goes out from there. Where on the right side, like there's nothing really emotionally wrong with it being on the right side. But it does, when it's on the left, it's like, oh, that's like the starting place of the painting in a different way that doesn't carry when it's on the right side.
I see. What apparently happened was, so this painting was done in 1941, and it was originally put on display at MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, in 1945. And if I understood it correctly, it may have been put upside down at that show, like from the get-go. And subsequently, it was just always hung in this incorrect way, where the blue lines are at the bottom and or the right side, from 1945. And then after that, it went into the collection. I'm so going to pronounce this wrong because it's in German, but it's the Kunstsammlung Nordrhein-Westfalen collection. It's a museum in Germany, and it's been in this collection since after sometime between 1945 and 1980, because it didn't end up getting rehung in this collection in Germany until 1980. And then ever since 1980 all the way till now, it's been in this upside down manner with the dense blue lines at the bottom. So we don't know exactly why it was hung this way, but the story of how it was discovered basically a few weeks ago, or maybe like a month ago or so, is that somebody apparently wrote an email. Sorry, it was an artist named Francesco Wassily. He's an Italian artist, and he sent an email a few months ago to the museum saying, "Whenever I look at this work, I always have a distinct feeling that it needs to be rotated 180 degrees." And then subsequently, this painting is a part of this new show about Mondrian that is on display at the museum. It's called Mondrian Evolution, and it's on between October 29th, 2022 and February 2023. So they were doing some research about a whole bunch of Mondrian paintings anyway, and curator Suzanne Meyer-Busser started to do research, being prompted by this email, and she discovered that there's a few reasons that they believe ultimately that it was hung upside down. The biggest reason is, or at least the biggest reason in my opinion, based on a list of reasons I saw, is it was put into, there was a picture of Mondrian's studio right after he died. I think in our episode we talked about how his studio was kind of preserved after he died, and in a photograph of his studio, this painting was hung with the blue lines at the top. So when it was hung in Mondrian's own studio, so supposedly he put it up himself, it was hung in that other way. And then also, there is another painting. So I dropped an article that has a picture of the studio in the show notes, and I also just put another link to a different painting that's at the Pompidou Center in Paris, France. And apparently, this one is it's another one in the series of paintings that Mondrian did of New York City. And this one, so I wonder if you can see this yourself, but they're saying this one makes it seem, or because there's a blue line at the top and there's a blue line at the left, and it's denser at the top in terms of lines than the bottom, they believe that this is similar in composition to this New York City 1 painting, and therefore it should match the orientation of this one that's in the Pompidou Center. So this is another reason. And so I guess, do you see it? I mean, this one seems much less obvious in terms of like a difference to me, but I am not an expert.
Yeah, this one definitely is more symmetrical, but it does still have the blue line on the left-hand side of the painting.
Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why it was used as comparison. And then the other reason is, if you scroll a little bit further in that Guardian article that I sent, there is a zoomed out picture of the painting where you can see the edges of it. And basically, I forgot to mention, the way he painted this was he took pieces of masking tape and taped it in this grid-like pattern onto the canvas. And then he just painted over the tape. The tape is still on the canvas, which is why you might see like little undulations. That's like the tape kind of coming off after all these years. It's very difficult to see, but you can tell that at the bottom, so the way it's hung right now, which is upside down, where it looks like that there's like a clean tape that starts. And then at the top, some of the tape actually doesn't hit the edge. So it suggests that when he was painting it, it was the other way around, and he started at the top and then probably ripped the tape off at the very bottom, but not all of it is hitting the edge. So it makes a little bit more sense that at least when he was painting it, it was painted with the blue lines at the top. This is another reason. So basically, all these investigations, and apparently, so the curator ended up, Meyer Buser, she pointed out to the other curators, and apparently her quote was, once I pointed it out, we realized it was very obvious. I am now 100% this picture is the wrong way around. So I guess, Are you convinced?
Yeah, I would say I'm convinced. I think the photo of the studio, which shows what appears to be that painting with the with very clearly the other orientation, is quite damning, and also the pointing out of like the running out of the tape at the top of the painting rather than the bottom, which would make more sense if that was supposed to be the bottom, also makes a ton of sense. So even beyond the sort of visual interpretations of like what his intention probably was, there seems to be like pretty firm physical proof that like, no, this was how it was.
Yeah, so and then the curator, she also explained that one of the reasons they probably got it wrong when they took it out of the box or when they went to hang it up for the first time, it's probably because this is one of the few Mondrian paintings that doesn't have a signature. So when there is a signature, obviously you can tell what the orientation of the signature is, and then you can make the painting whatever way. And usually people put the signature at the bottom. But because this one didn't have a signature, they had to guess. And this is technically an unfinished painting. It's one of the ones towards the end of Mondrian's life, so it didn't get finished. So we don't actually know what his intention is ultimately. And because of this reason, there's other curators from around the world who are like, oh, I don't agree that this is the right orientation because he wasn't done. Who's to say he wouldn't have flipped it around at the end? So, I mean, I think that's a pretty weak argument, but I guess it is a conversation that is being had at some places.
Yeah, I mean, with a piece that isn't finished like this, I think it is a bit more open to interpretation. And so, yeah, I saw a quote in one of these articles where the curator did say, maybe there is no right or wrong orientation after all.
Yeah.
And so it seems like, we're pretty sure, we're pretty confident. We're pretty sure it was supposed to be this orientation, but also, with such an abstract piece, maybe he would have changed his mind, flipped it around. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. The person who actually told me about this news was actually my dad, and I was talking to both of my parents, and my mom was just like, this painting doesn't have a right side up. She was just like, why are people even talking about this? So, and I can see, why someone might think that. But I do think it's interesting that the museum has decided that for this current show and also any subsequent shows going forward, they're actually going to continue to display it upside down. So, but they do actually have a good reason. It's actually for conservation purposes. So apparently the tape is actually pretty loosely on there. Some of it is at risk of falling off, and they think turning it upside down is gonna introduce like additional conditions that the painting isn't used to, like gravity now all of a sudden is pulling on the other way. So they're like, we don't really want to risk any further damage to this painting because it's already pretty damaged. So we're just gonna leave it.
That makes sense. It is it's so funny because it's like, well, you can't like throw little Elmers in there, but I guess you can. You gotta. That's not art preservation. Yeah. So, this is this thing that's safest for the painting, and now I suppose they'll probably add something to the description to indicate like, well, we're pretty sure this is upside down, but we can't move it, so here you go.
Yeah, exactly. I think earlier you mentioned you had something. It reminded you of this particular news story. Reminded you of something personally?
Oh, yes. I actually have an anecdote about this, and I don't know if I've told this anecdote on the show before, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. But many years ago, I was at the Tate Modern, and I was in the room of Mark Rothko paintings. And I'm actually pretty sure I probably told this story when we were talking about Rothko, but I'll say it again for anyone who didn't hear that. Anyway, so he was another artist who did stuff that like it's really not clear which way it's supposed to hang. Big squares of color, a lot of like textures, not representative of anything. And there was this one big piece that had these blocks. There was very dark reds, and there was paint dripping down. There were like dried paint that had like dripped, but it was dripping upside down. So it was dripping like towards the sky. And I was like, that's not how paint drips. And then I got really confused. I was like, what is this upside down? And so I spent a lot of time Googling it. And it turns out that this is like a known thing. And apparently there are some disagreements between curators whether this particular painting is supposed to be hung the way that it is or the other way around, but the general consensus is that is this way that the is supposed to be hung. But the reason that the paint is going the wrong way, apparently it's happened in more than one Rothko painting, because he would flip things around while he painted them. So it was like, oh well, it was upside down when he was painting a certain section and some drips dried like that, and then he turned it back around to like, but this is the correct orientation as far as we know,
right?
But those are just little signs of that, and I always thought that was so interesting because I was like on my phone Googling at the museum, like, is this painting upside down?
That actually segues really well into what I was thinking of doing next, which is I have downloaded a bunch of random paintings, abstract paintings by artists who's known for doing works that are really abstract, and I have flipped some of them upside down.
Oh no.
I would like you to guess. I'm going to send you a link to a painting, and I would like you to guess if you think it's the right side up or upside down.
Oh no, I'm going to be terrible at this.
No, it's okay. I mean, these are totally meant to be trick questions. And
Okay. I'm excited.
But the funny thing is, the first one I was going to show you is a Mark Rothko.
Oh no, my kryptonite.
Yeah.
Okay, you have sent me a picture. It is called Rust and Blue. We have the rust-colored rectangle at the top, then a brighter blue sort of skinnier strip in the middle, and then a kind of darker blue rectangle on the bottom. And wow, this is rough. Wait, can I? It's really hard to turn my laptop upside down. I've got so many things plugged into it.
Yeah.
I feel like I got to look at things both ways.
Okay. I'm
going to guess that this is correct, that the red is supposed to be on the top.
You are right.
Yes. Okay. I feel like it looks better that way, so yeah. I'm excited.
Okay. Good. Very, very good. All right. You got that one correct. I'm going to send you another one.
Whew, okay. This is a Joan Mitchell painting. This feels like the worst trick question in the world. Because it's white background, lots and lots of splotches of paint, mostly of darker colors. But honestly, lots of lighter colors worked in there as well. But yeah, it is just swatches of paint. That being said, there is a signature on this.
I should have cropped that. Damn it.
So I did spot the signature, so I believe that means this painting is upside down.
Okay, that good work.
I wasn't sure if that was something I had caught or if that was the trick question.
No, it wasn't.
The signature was upside down.
A bunch of these had signatures, and I made sure to crop some of them, but then that was one where I didn't even notice the signature. So good eye. All
right,
okay.
2 for 2.
So.
All right. This is this an O'Keeffe painting?
This is an O'Keeffe. Yeah, good job.
Yes. It's not even labeled and I got that. I'm so proud of myself, honestly. Yeah. Okay, but it's very abstract. It's just white. It looks like maybe it's a very close up of flower petals or something like that, which would be very O'Keeffe. But hard to say. This one is hard.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, I'm turning my laptop upside down. Okay, this really is just a guess, but I'm going to guess this is the correct orientation.
This is actually upside down.
Wow, okay. Is this a sliver of a larger thing, or is this actually the painting?
It's the painting. It's called Abstraction White. Or at least based on what a picture that I found on the internet, and this is like a picture of the painting and it says Abstraction White. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not a close-up, or at least if it was a close-up, she painted it as a close-up on purpose.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's got really good color, but yeah, okay. 2 to 1.
Yep. No, that was a hard one.
All right. I don't know who this one is by.
Oh, and that's totally okay. And by the way, the game is just supposed to be an upside down guessing game. It's not testing you on who.
Oh, I know. I'm trying to provide context for the audience.
So this one is a Helen Frankenthaler.
Okay.
I'm sure I've mentioned her a few times before, or at least once or twice before. But one thing to know is Helen Frankenthaler paints on the floor, and she pours paint all over the place and then she swirls it around. So there isn't necessarily an orientation even when she's painting. Now, eventually she does stretch it onto a canvas, and I assume, let me just make sure this one doesn't have a signature on it either. It does not. So supposedly these do have an orientation, but I can see Frankenthaler's as another type of paint, or another set of paintings where it could be unclear, because seeing which way the paint drips is not necessarily where it is supposed to, or where the bottom is. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, this one is impossible. It's just... Because first of all, it's not even like a vertical orientation in the painting. It seems more like a horizontal orientation.
Yeah.
It's mostly just these wide bits of abstract orange color. And then there's kind of like a horizontal reddish stripe kind of. None of these are clean lines at all. It's very, very fluid in the middle. So it's not even like if I turn it upside down, it looks basically the same because it's just not oriented on a vertical axis like that. But just a wild guess, I'm going to once again guess that this is oriented correctly.
You are correct this time. Yeah.
All right.
That
one truly, I had nothing going for me on that one.
Yeah. So here is another one.
All right. This one, we've got a lot of stuff going on. It's a Kandinsky, and so it's a little surreal. It's very abstract. Lots of colors, lines, shapes, lot of sharp lines and shapes going on in this, but certainly not directly representative of a particular thing, I would say. Mm-hmm. Ooh, this is hard.
I know. This one is funny because this one is one of the more... The other ones are like swaths of color, so it's definitely difficult. But this one has a lot of asymmetrical things, but it's still not clear which,
Yeah, when I looked at it, I thought I was going to think it was upside down, but then I turned it upside down and that looked even more wrong. So that's, it doesn't really look correct either way, I would say. But I hate to say the same thing 3 times in a row, but I guess one time I was wrong. So I'll just say I guess my guess is that it's oriented correctly like this.
It is oriented correctly. So wait, let me just check my notes.
Right.
Yes, it is correct. So,
okay.
Nice.
I know, literally, I looked at this and I was like, oh, I think this is going to be upside down. And then I turned it upside down. And I was like, no, this looks way worse.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I just have a couple more and
you're killing me, Betty.
I'm sorry. So, this one, okay, it doesn't have, the file name doesn't indicate. So it's a Barnett Newman painting. So he's known for basically squares or rectangles in our case. So you're lucky that I'm not showing you one of the squares because, or actually I'm not going to say that. Just, we'll see. So.
Well, we have, it's a green background. We've got one yellow horizontal stripe in kind of the top third. And then we've got a slightly thicker orange horizontal stripe kind of in the bottom third. They're not exact thirds, but in honor of this Mondrian painting we just looked at, where the lines should have been more concentrated at the top, I'm going to guess that this is upside down.
It is upside down. Good job.
Oh my God. I have been so much better at this than I thought I was going to be.
You are on fire. No. Okay. So very last one. And
well, this is nothing. Betty. I know. Well, this is a Malevich painting, and it's just kind of, it's like a very dark blue square, and it's kind of crackly. There's absolutely nothing whatsoever on this that would indicate in what way it's supposed to go. I'm zooming in to see if I can see any paint drips.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
I'm not seeing any.
And the cracks only exist because it's so old. Like I could have shown you a version of this when it was new, and it literally would just be a black square.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that the cracks were decay and not intentional.
Yeah, it was like a very smooth black square when it was first painted, and also the colors faded. It was just like totally black, and now you're probably seeing it's a bit bluey. It's probably because the colors faded a little bit since the beginning. Well,
all things considered, I'm going to guess that this is hung correctly.
So this is upside down, but again, this was totally random. It could have gone either way. So, but
I take it. I think that's a defeat well earned.
No, yeah. Honestly, you got most of these correct. There was only 2 that you did not get correct, but those were the hardest ones. So good work. Anyway, that was the game that I wanted to play, and I hope you're you're not too mad at me. So.
Thank you. That was super fun. Thank you for providing this beautiful game for me today.
Yeah, no problem. So I guess, do you have any final thoughts on, paintings, what way they should be hung, the different sides, what side is up, does it matter?
My only concluding thought on this is I think it's delightful that sometimes we realize things are hung upside down. I know it can be embarrassing for the museum or the curators who are there, but I find that so inherently human and lovely to just be like, oh no, this thing is so abstract and that we didn't even realize that it could be different than how we just assumed it was. And isn't it wild that we can change our perspective on this painting so quickly? I think that's a lovely, fun human thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons why I think when it comes to these really simple paintings, that's, just a square, or it's a very simple geometric abstract painting, there can still be so much fun discussion and so many interesting things that come out of them that's unexpected. And I really enjoy it when this happens, because then, there's more stories to tell, that rather than just, it's a square.
I think that's so fun. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with me. It has been great to learn about. Thanks everybody out there for listening. You can find our show notes and all of those images that we talked about today, whether they are correct or not, at relay.fm/pictorial. You can also find us on Twitter or Instagram at PictorialPod. And you can find me on Instagram at QuinsterRose. That's right, I changed my handle.
Oh, wow, interesting. My handle has not changed. And you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Articulations_V. I'm also on YouTube as Articulations. And speaking of YouTube, we do have a YouTube channel called Pictorial Podcasts, where we have some of our older episodes that now have video versions uploaded to the channel. So for this one, hopefully it will come out in a few months. You will be looking at some paintings that may or may not be upside down.
Thanks for listening, art enthusiasts.